Hello, lovelies. In this podcast, we're going to cover spiritual awakening, including discussing how to jumpstart an awakening, Kundalini yoga, how awakenings affect the brain, the different types of awakenings, dark night of the soul, how to manage anxiety during awakening, 5 ways to foster a spiritual awakening, ego death, and we will finish on whether you can have multiple awakenings. So, how do you jumpstart a spiritual awakening? So it's both surprising and unsurprising that spiritual awareness has been growing tremendously in recent times. Surprisingly, because people are more superficial than ever in the modern world, and unsurprising because people are increasingly looking for something that can fill their lives with peace and harmony, especially due to the growing complexities of life. So, if you are here seeking a spiritual awakening, you are not alone. Millions of people worldwide have started thinking about the larger meaning of life and what they are meant to do in the world. The problem, however, is that most people don't know how to jumpstart their spiritual awakening, and so they waste a lot of time doing things that lead nowhere. Today, in this podcast, we will talk about some effective and easy ways you can start your spiritual journey and make progress over time. We're going to cover 5 steps right now. So, your first step for a spiritual awakening is to ask for a spiritual awakening. If you are aware of the law of attraction, you will know that you have to ask the universe or higher power for what you want. And you have to be clear and concise. So if you want a spiritual awakening, you have to literally ask for it. You can do this while meditating, journaling, or praying. You can say things like, I am ready for my spiritual journey. Please help me raise my vibration. Universe, I want to connect with you and transcend my physical nature. Higher self, I am ready to jumpstart my spiritual development. Please show me the way, and so on. 2, you need to consent to the spiritual awakening. So, after you have asked a higher power to help you embark upon your spiritual journey, you also need to provide your consent. This might sound the same as the previous step, but there is a subtle difference. In this step, you are basically making an agreement with yourself to evolve. Since this journey can involve facing past fears, dealing with lots of challenges, and healing your inner self, you need to consent to your spiritual awakening. You can even give your guardian angels or higher self the permission to guide you forward. Number 3, you need to seek spiritual knowledge and guidance. So the universe will start your journey and do what is necessary for your development. However, you also need to do anything you can from your side to make the journey more meaningful and impactful. For example, you can seek spiritual knowledge to understand this dimension of life much better than before. You can listen to my podcast. You can have a look at some ebooks that I'll be eventually uploading. You can read spiritual texts, talk to experienced practitioners, read spiritual blogs, and go for healing sessions like Reiki, pranic healing, sound healing, etc. You can also meditate and try to connect with a higher power. During your meditation, you can ask for guidance and help along your path. And with this step, it's it's like saying you can't ask the universe for something and then just sit back and expect it to happen. You basically need to put things in place for those things that you are asking for to come to you. Number 4, use affirmations. So affirmations are a great way not to only reprogram your subconscious mind, but also supercharge your manifestation process. If you want a spiritual awakening, you can use affirmations to literally attract it into your life. You can use affirmations like, I am gradually stepping into a higher dimension of life. I am a spiritual being who is opening up every day to grace and evolution. I am awakening to my spiritual side. The universe is guiding me forward on my spiritual path, and so on. Number 5, go easy on yourself. This is one of the most important things that people forget. They start with unrealistic expectations and want their spiritual awakening to happen quickly. They also think that they are supposed to stay positive or happy all the time. Of course, all of these are not possible. You have to be patient and allow yourself to go through your journey with grace. Don't be hard on yourself for not being able to remain ecstatic all the time. Don't be hard on yourself for feeling negative emotions and thinking negative thoughts. It's okay. It's part of being human. Just go with the flow and you will keep progressing consistently. Kundalini yoga and spiritual awakenings. It's highly likely that you've heard about yoga. Today, this practice has spread to almost all corners of the world, and millions of people have made it a part of their lives. However, while people generally associate yoga with physical movements and poses, the truth is that it is much more. It is only when you take a deep dive into this subject that you realise how sacred and transformational it can be. So, what is yoga? And in Indian spiritual texts, it is said that yoga literally means union. It's the union between our souls and divine energy. Therefore, since ancient times, yoga has been taught as a way to liberate yourself from the physical world and merge with the divine force. This experience of something greater than yourself is called a spiritual awakening. Now, there are many types of yoga for different purposes. Some are aimed at developing psychic abilities, some are meant for physical and mental well-being, and some are meant for spiritual awakening. Kundalini yoga happens to be one of the most powerful practices for spiritual awakening. So what is Kundalini yoga? Kundalini yoga is a form of yoga that includes chanting, breathing exercises, repetitive poses, meditation, rituals, and prayers. This yoga is designed to help you transcend your physical limitations. In other words, it is meant to help you experience a transcended state and merge with divine consciousness. So how does Kundalini yoga do this? Well, to answer that question, you will first need to learn what Kundalini is. In Hinduism, Kundalini is described as the divine feminine energy that stays locked up in a coiled form at the base of your spine. When it gets awakened, it moves through your central energy channels, usually called the chakras, until it meets with the seventh chakra, the crown chakra. The crown chakra is the divine masculine energy, and the meeting of the two is called yoga, or union. When you experience yoga within yourself, you essentially enter a heightened state of awareness, and you finally experience divine oneness. This is what Kundalini yoga is designed for. So how do you awaken Kundalini? Now, before you try this, you should know that a Kundalini awakening can be a really intense experience. Even advanced practitioners can become scared, confused, and highly uncomfortable when their Kundalini starts to rise up. So, it is always best to practice Kundalini yoga under the guidance of a guru. Also, you should know that despite your best efforts, it is up to your Kundalini when she decides to wake up. For some, it takes a whole lifetime. For some, it happens spontaneously, and for most people, it takes a few lifetimes. So if you want to embark upon this journey, do so without any expectations. Usually, your guru will guide you to master the following practices. So first, breath work. Certain breathing exercises can make the life force flow freely in your subtle body or the energy body. This can often trigger an awakening. Secondly, meditation. Meditation is one of the best ways to connect to divine forces and prepare your body, mind, and energies to experience awakening. Thirdly, yoga postures. Certain types of yoga, like hatha yoga, can be instrumental to strengthen your body, to trigger an awakening, and handle the sheer amount of energy that is released during such an event. And number 4, energy healing. The role of healing cannot be overstated. It clears out any blockages from your energy body, clears ailments, heals energy pathways, heals the physical body, and prepares you for the awakening. Number 5, chanting. Chanting is another way to create the necessary vibrational state in your body to trigger a Kundalini awakening. There are many sacred mantras that can help you unblock and balance your chakras and create the perfect atmosphere for an awakening. Spirituality is a fascinating concept. Even though it has a diverse and long history, nobody actually knows where and when it originated. Eastern cultures talk about spiritual texts that date back thousands of years, and that is just the documented history. The oral law goes back even further. No matter which ancient culture you explore, you will find stories and legends of people who managed to reach the peaks of spiritual experience. They were said to be spiritually awakened or enlightened. Even today, many people who practice spirituality as a way of life assert that they experience something greater than themselves. They say that they are able to connect to a higher force. Of course, different people have different names for this higher force. It's been called higher consciousness, universal energy, God, divine energy, the universe, and more. Perhaps this is why spirituality itself has so many different definitions. But what does science have to say about all of this? Is there a way we can study how spiritual awakening or experiences happen inside us? Well, in a small study, scientists did exactly that, and the results, as you would expect, are fascinating. Spiritual awakenings in the brain. For decades, scientists have tried to understand the neurobiological mechanism responsible for people's spiritual awakening. Despite their best efforts, there hasn't been much success in this regard. However, one study from 2019 was able to shed some light on the matter. Researchers from Oxford, Yale, and Columbia universities wanted to see what happens inside our brains when we have a spiritual experience. They recruited 27 young adults from Connecticut. They were first asked to remember their spiritual experiences. According to the researchers, this was done to build their imaginary script. They were also asked to recount some stressful and peaceful moments in their life. Then, after a week, the researchers took MRI scans of the participants while they were made to listen to a recording of a female voice which recounted their experiences back to them. In the scans, it was revealed that all of the volunteers exhibited the same neurological pattern. In all of the participants' brains, there was increased activity in the parietal cortex, which means they had increased attention, and decreased activity in the left inferior parietal lobe, which is responsible for self-awareness and awareness of other people. This would make perfect sense to anybody who has gone through a spiritual experience or had a spiritual awakening. During such experiences, a person completely loses track of themselves, all the people around them, and enters an almost trance-like state. But the amazing part is that they are truly attentive to one thing. It could be a thought, an emotion, a higher force, a memory, their breath, or anything else. This also matches perfectly with what stories of spirituality enlightened people suggest. According to them, during a spiritual awakening or enlightenment, they achieve a transcended state where they essentially feel as though they have merged with the divine. It is a state where you truly feel one with everything. Suffice it to say, this is something that should be explored further. It could open up a whole new dimension for scientific study. Different types of awakenings. I'm guessing we all have some sort of preconceived ideas of what is a spiritual awakening and what isn't one. While many of our notions on this topic might be correct, there are some lesser known spiritual awakenings out there as well. So let's take a look at some of these and learn a little bit more about them. Awakening of the mind. An awakening of the mind happens when a person receives a profound piece of knowledge that fundamentally changes how they perceive the world. Sometimes this can be a completely new insight, something that they have never even thought about for a second in their entire existence. This brand new idea or information opens a door, or better yet, a window, for the person to look at the world around them in a new light. This new insight might broaden a person's view of the world, or might deepen their admiration and respect for the people or places around them. This awakening of the mind can be brought on in many ways. Maybe the person receives a download when they have some sort of ego death. Maybe they have decided to break away from society norms and seek a new path. Maybe they've taken part in a plant medicine ceremony, or perhaps they've started a new mindfulness practice that is opening up parts of their unconscious mind that they never accessed before. Regardless of how the awakening is brought into a person's life, the outcome of this momentous event will be a major milestone in that person's life. Awakening of a new personality. Another type of awakening is that of a personality shift. This can be classified as an awakening because it may occur to the person as whole and not just a portion of their personality. They may receive a monumental breakthrough in how they function in this world. Maybe a person has acted a certain way their entire life, and all that changes when they are privy to new information or new methods of interpreting that information. We all have identities and tribes that we are part of, in some ways now more than ever. Imagine all of a sudden learning something new about your tribe that makes you question your very existence in the said tribe. Imagine if you had adapted your entire being to reflect the traits and behaviours of this tribe. Imagine being faced with the conflict of moving forward with this new information. How would you rectify your role in this community? How would you rectify the beliefs and ideals that you hold so high in relation to this community? As you can imagine, it is a lot to deal with. In an instant, you might awaken this new personality and things might never go back to how they used to. Now, not all awakenings related to personality have to be so extreme. Sometimes a person might just become tired of the way they have always done things. They might want to change or grow and shed their old personality for a new one. This can be a very healthy thing in a person's life. We are not the same people at different seasons in our lives. We may not always like the same things that we did when we were younger, and this is the definition of growth. Growing as a person does not mean standing still. It might not be a linear path, but we all must strive for growth. Sometimes that growth will involve letting go of who we used to be with the goal of becoming the person we truly are. Energy awakenings. Sometimes the awakening people experience is more energy-based than mind or body-based. This type of awakening is very powerful and very invigorating because it deals in pure source energy that lifts us to new heights while expanding what we thought was possible in this life. Many practitioners of Tai Chi, Kundalini Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Reiki, or any other energy-focused practice may experience this type of awakening at some point in their journey. It can slowly creep up on a person like a wave building energy in the ocean, or it can happen all of a sudden like a flash of lightning. Because of the different aspects of how and when this style of awakening can begin, it can be somewhat scary if you don't understand what is happening. It is important to practice lots of self-care and try to unpack these feelings slowly. This kind of an energetic opening can be a lot to take in, and you have to be easy on yourself. On the other hand, for some people, it can be purely blissful and energetic. Everyone is different and everyone's journey is personal to them and should be respected. You may wake up one day and feel a new sense of power within you. You may feel a buzzing or glowing and physical sense. You may feel open to things that you had never thought possible. Your consciousness is expanded and you might be able to literally feel energy flowing through your body. These new sensations or powers may be permanent or they may only last a short time, but no matter how long they last, they are sure to leave an impression that stays with you for the rest of your days. Soul awakening. Another powerful awakening that we should all be so lucky to experience is that of the soul. This can happen through many mediums, but often contains a massive shift in consciousness. Keep in mind that when many people think of the word soul, they immediately infer religious connotations. In reality, the word soul incorporates so much more than religion itself. It contains every aspect of our humanity on this earth and all other planes of existence as well. Your soul houses every single fibre of your intellectual energy, emotional self, and physical self. Different people may think of their soul in different ways, but we can all agree that our soul plays an important role in this universe, whether we fully understand it or not. Like other spiritual awakenings we have discussed, this one can happen gradually in stages, or it can happen like an earthquake all at once. An awakening of the soul is simply a massive shift in our perception of the world, our role in it, and the expanding of our consciousness in leaps and bounds. What is a dark night of the soul? The Dark Night of the Soul may sound like the name of a movie, but it is a real thing. In fact, it is a terrible experience for anyone who goes through it. As the name might suggest, the Dark Night of the Soul refers to a phase where your very soul enters a depressive state. Yes, it is possible for your soul to experience different states like bliss, joy, depression, and grief. Often this phase is mistakenly diagnosed as clinical depression because all the symptoms are the same. However, it goes beyond the realms of your mind. Essentially, it's your soul experiencing a crisis. And when that happens, you question everything, literally everything. You question why you're alive, what the point of life is, what your purpose is, what would happen if you didn't exist, and so on. Basically, it's a time when you're extremely confused, detached, dispassionate, miserable, and disheartened all at once. Nothing seems to make sense, and you don't see any way out of your predicament. The dark night of the soul can be triggered by painful events such as the loss of a loved one, an accident, a natural disaster, a financial crisis, and so on. Usually these events are outside of your control. But things can get even more confusing when this phase is triggered by something totally unexpected that you just can't explain logically. Something might happen to you that might shatter your beliefs, or someone you trusted more than yourself might turn out to be a fraud. Or it could be also that everything you worked towards for years might crash and amount to nothing. No matter what the trigger is, you are sent into a hellish phase where everywhere you look, you see darkness. However, even though it might not feel like it at the moment, this phase is temporary. In fact, it can lead to something much more monumental. The dark night of the soul can act like a bridge where you move from a lower state of potential to a much higher state of potential. Often this phase brings out a spiritual transformation in people and they come out with a heightened sense of awareness. You could say that they emerge as awakened beings. So don't be surprised if you become a totally new person. You might stop doing things just to please people. Your appetite might change. Sleep patterns may change. You may not find happiness in materialistic things anymore. You might stop fearing an adverse event. You may feel the need to detox more often, and you may want to dive deeper into the world of spirituality. In the end, as unlikely as it might sound, you will be grateful for having experienced the dark night of the soul. You will realize that without it, you couldn't have been reborn. The new and incredible life you will live after this phase will only be possible because of the horrors and pain that you experienced. How to manage anxiety during a spiritual awakening. Perhaps the best way to understand a spiritual awakening is to look at it as a roller coaster ride. It is not always rainbows and unicorns. Sometimes it puts up a mirror in front of you to make you look at your deepest and darkest side. Not only that, it forces you to heal everything that you might have ignored or suppressed in the past, like trauma, shame, fears, addictions, failures, etc. As such, it is only normal for anxiety to surface every once in a while during your spiritual awakening process. After all, you are literally disintegrating your old self and growing into a much more evolved version. Not only that, you are waking up to the reality of the world. This can cause disenchantment, painful realizations, detachment, and so on. Of course, not everyone goes through a dark transition process. Some people do have a relatively peaceful and relaxing experience throughout the whole thing. However, most people find that they have to go through a terrible phase to get to the other side. Since anxiety can be a natural side effect of spiritual awakening, you should know how to manage it. Otherwise, it will only make the process more difficult. Today, we're going to look at some effective ways you can do that. You need to know that your anxiety is necessary. Spiritual awakening is like the process of becoming a butterfly from a caterpillar. And as you already know, this process can't happen without a transition phase. Sure, this phase may hurt, but the result will be beautiful. So if you are suffering from anxiety right now, tell yourself that it is necessary for a very beautiful and fulfilling future. You might be feeling weak right now, but know this weakness will ultimately lead to a much stronger you. Look for support. Pouring our hearts out in front of the people we love can be a healing experience. It can make you feel better and give you a new perspective on your situation. Plus, you realise that you are not the only one going through this journey. So in the midst of the transition process, you should find someone who is going through the same. You can share what you're going through and maybe even compare notes. Act as an observer. Spiritual gurus often tell us that we need to act as observers in our lives, regardless of whether we seek spiritual awakening or not. They say that it is best not to let our thoughts and emotions impact us negatively. When you are in an observer of your own self, you create a certain distance between yourself and your psychological drama. This leads to a stoic state of mind. You are no longer in resistance but in acceptance, and this wards off anxiety, stress, and fear. Focus on the positives. A spiritual awakening is a beautiful thing. Sure, you might need to go through a difficult phase to finally achieve it, but it all will be worth it. It will almost feel like you are reborn. An entire lifetime worth of negative energies will be released from your body, and this will make space for positive energies and a higher vibrational state to exist. You will also have a much wider perspective on life and reality, and you will finally understand what your purpose is in this life. 5 ways to foster a spiritual awakening. While many people today choose to focus on the negative aspects of our modern society, there is one positive change that we can all reap the benefits of. We are all talking about the absolutely unbelievable amount of knowledge that we literally have at our fingertips. We walk around all day with the equivalent of a supercomputer in our pockets, and yet many of us are confused about what is real and what is not, what can be believed and what lessons to take with a grain of salt. This is definitely the case with spiritual awakenings. In our modern world of social media and 24-hour news cycles, many spiritual topics get thrown around haphazardly, or on the other hand, they get swept under the rug altogether. With so much raw emotion and energy attached to a single life event, there is bound to be some confusion and a plethora of questions about what exactly is a spiritual awakening. So let's just start at the beginning and break down a few of the different ways to help nurture a spiritual awakening. A true spiritual awakening can be one of the most earth-shattering, mind-blowing, important, and impactful events that can happen in a person's life, while also being one of the most exciting, weirdest, scariest, loneliest, and wild rides we ever take. Like the name suggests, you are literally awakening to a whole new life. The disillusion of your ego combines with a magical paradigm shift that can cause a person to look at their life and everything in it with new eyes. Now, I know what you are saying. Whoa, hold on, that sounds intense. While it can be, the path to a spiritual awakening is different for everyone, and there are no rules when it comes to this kind of deep work. The one thing we want to keep in mind is small changes can lead to some pretty big results. So let's talk about some of the more subtle things that you can do to help open your mind, body, and spirit on the journey of enlightenment. Like we talked about earlier, our modern society has a way of sensationalizing the idea of a spiritual awakening. We see the idea of it being an all or nothing kind of deal, and that is just not the case. Sometimes a person may just have a feeling, or they may get the sensation of a major change happening. Sometimes a person may get a peek behind the veil of life. Maybe it happens without your knowledge. Maybe it happens with lots of hard work or none at all. The bottom line is that we are dealing with something greater than ourselves when we talk about spiritual awakenings, and a lot of it is still a mystery, even to the experts. But one thing we can all agree on is there are a few things we can do to help encourage the right climate for spiritual awakenings. After all, what do we have to lose? Absolutely nothing. Fostering these skills and practices can do nothing but relieve stress, increase happiness, and overall dramatically benefit your life, regardless of if you ever achieve a spiritual awakening or not. 1. Slow down. Take time every day to leave our modern world behind and just slow down. Many of us go months, even years, without taking the time to stop, observe, be in the moment, and reflect on the moment before us. 2. Meditate. Regulate your breathing and your thoughts to help unwind and get in tune with your inner self. It doesn't take much time and will greatly reduce stress and anxiety in your daily life. 3. Nature grounding. One of the most powerful ways of fostering the right conditions for a spiritual awakening is to spend as much time in nature as possible. Spending time in nature is one of the best ways to slow down and really get in tune with ourselves. We were created hand in hand with nature, and our bodies instinctively know the power that brings. Grounding can psychologically lower our stress, increase our energy, and generate more well-being. Number 4, dance and laugh. Both of these habits help increase the mind-body connection, lower stress, bring more oxygen into the body, and foster positive mental outlooks. Dancing can help release trauma and mental baggage that we carry around on a daily basis, while laughing can release endorphins and better our immune system. Number 5, volunteer. You know that feeling when you've done a good deed or helped someone in need? It's amazing, right? Try and actively pursue volunteer work to keep that energy flowing. Your body will literally be buzzing with good vibes. Who doesn't want that? There you go, our top 5 simple ways to foster the right environment for a spiritual awakening. If you work on incorporating these into your daily life, you are sure to have many positive benefits. Ego death. Let me ask you a question. I'm guessing that sometime in the last few years you have heard the term ego death being tossed around. Am I right? Let's take a look at some of the basics surrounding the idea of an ego death and how that relates to us today and what that means for us tomorrow. While the idea of an ego death or loss of self-identity is by no means a new concept, in fact it's quite ancient, there has definitely been an increased level of societal awareness related to it as of late, and that is the amazing thing. Why, you ask? Why are so many people talking about ego death or searching for ways to attain this mystical level of enlightenment? That is a very good question. The answer is twofold. First and foremost, our society has reached a point in its evolution where more and more people are looking inward. The more technology advances and the more we become disconnected from one another, the more we strive to go deeper in search of meaning. More and more people are looking for ways to optimize themselves in certain areas of their lives, and they are looking to do that through non-traditional methods. The second answer is the increasing popularity of plant medicine, which is funny in a sense, because it too has roots based in the beginning of humankind itself as well. So here we have two ancient traditions or ideas that are seeing a pretty remarkable resurgence and increased level of consciousness from people today. So what exactly is an ego death? Well, simply stated, it is the dissolution of your self-identity. Now, there is no hard and fast rule for what this looks like. It can vary greatly depending on the personal situation, but it basically boils down to a few key points which we will discuss here. From a psychological point of view, your ego compromises all of the self words that you have heard before: self-esteem, self-identity, self-image. These different versions of self help us to make the choices that we make in our daily life. They are half stories that we tell ourselves and half remnants from choices that we have made up to this point on our journey. As you can imagine, that could play a pretty big role in your life. For example, the stories that we tell ourselves can be as little as, I don't like broccoli, and as major as, I'm not smart enough to get that job. These stories or narratives that we tell ourselves become our realities. Take a moment to digest that statement. These stories or narratives that we tell ourselves become our realities. Seriously, no truer words have ever been spoken. Think about your own life and what stories you tell yourself. Now think about having the truly awesome power to change these stories. Wouldn't that be unbelievably beneficial? Imagine that you always take that same route to work, every day, in and out, for years. After a while, you forget that there's even a possibility of being another route. That daily path becomes so ingrained in our psyche that we literally start to believe that is the only way. But what if there were, in fact, many other ways to make that journey? Some that were actually better and faster? We would deprive ourselves from ever taking or even knowing that they exist. This is where ego death comes into the picture. It's the idea of wiping the slate clean, the process of changing all these little stories that we tell ourselves on a daily basis, all the patterns and constructs that we continually play out in our lives so that we free up space for newer and better patterns to emerge. The emotional walls that we have constructed about how and why we do things come crashing down. Sometimes these walls have kept us doing the same things in life simply because it is comfortable to do so. In reality, we are not only capable of doing more or doing better, it is our life's purpose to break free from these imaginary shackles and live up to the divine purpose the universe have in store for us. So as you can see, that is why the concept of ego death is so powerful and intriguing, especially as of late. Who wouldn't want to strive for more? Who wouldn't want to reach their maximum potential while letting go of the negative self-talk that is guiding their actions? While no one can change the past, many people believe that ego death may hold the key to actually rewriting your personal history in the hopes of a better future. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't mind giving that a try. Can you have multiple awakenings? We have all heard of a spiritual awakening. It changes people's lives. It can change us all in different ways. But have you ever wondered if you can experience more than one spiritual awakening? Everyone experiences a spiritual awakening in different ways. Some people feel that they have lost a part of their soul and they need to create a new soul so that they can live a new life. Others experience a change in their thought patterns. They start thinking more positively and they express gratitude more often. This helps them manifest positive changes in their life. Their life then becomes about teaching other people how to change theirs. With such a vast range of experiences and ways in which it can change you, it is possible to experience more than one spiritual awakening in your lifetime. We are now going to go over some of the different variations and ways you may experience spiritual awakenings over the course of your life. We are going to go through some descriptions of some different awakenings that people experience, and you may realize you have already experienced more than one of these types. That is completely normal. You can experience multiple awakenings at different times in life, and when it comes to spiritual awakenings, there is no such thing as too soon or too many. The mind. One of the first awakenings people often experience is awakening of the mind. When your mind awakens, you become aware of the power it holds. Everything in this universe is mental. Or, in other words, everything that we perceive in the universe is first processed and expressed in our minds. When our minds awaken, we cannot ignore its power and the new perspective it has given us. If you are experiencing an awakening of the mind, you will most likely start to resonate with Hermetic philosophy or teachings about the power of our subconscious mind. Your mind is the key to your growth. This awakening will make you make you awe at the beauty of nature and the incredible powers of the human brain, because without it, you would not be able to tap into this incredible awareness that having this type of awakening brings. The personality. Another common type of awakening is the awakening of a new personality. People often believe that personalities are stagnant and unchanging. They think that whether you are happy, energetic, warm, cold, depressed, prickly, friendly, extroverted, introverted, they're all predetermined traits you were born with. The truth is that this is not the case at all. Although we are creatures of habit, and so the more we practice a personality trait or are expected to act a certain way, the more often we will embody that characteristic in our being and identity. And because of that, to have the sort of awakening that creates a massive shift in your personality, the core of who you think you are, often requires a major event. This type of awakening is usually triggered by a traumatic life experience. This event changes you completely. You struggle to go back to who you were, and in fact, going back to the old you is impossible. So you become a new person altogether. In part, it has to do with denial, but it also has to do with the fact that things weren't working before you awakened. This is why you had to awaken. Things need to change, and the new you will help you make these changes slowly. Not every decision that you make will be right. Not everyone you love will love the decisions you make. And that's okay. As painful as this situation is, it will pass. Things will get better. The best thing you can do right now is to trust the process. Consciousness. This type of awakening opens you up to your true purpose. When you have an awakening of consciousness, you may find yourself drawn to shamanism and other ancient traditions that use awakenings and expanding consciousness to help and heal others and the world. This is the type of awakening usually discussed in shamanic circles. Consciousness can travel, and shamans know how to make it. When your consciousness awakens, you cannot ever go back to who you were. You realize that there are different planes on which life exists. You realize that there are different levels of consciousness and different planes of existence. You can access these levels and planes because as a shaman, it is your purpose to make all these levels work together for the greater good. Shamans don't just bridge the gap between our world and the worlds of spirits. They are the bridge between these worlds. They understand that disharmony on any of these levels and planes can have catastrophic outcomes, so they make sure it doesn't happen. They are not just working for the community. They don't just bring people back from the dead. They value every breath a person takes just as much as they value life on earth. They also respect death as a natural process. For them, every life they save represents a greater good, and they do their best fighting for it. They recognise disharmony when they see it in a sick person, and they do their best to be the mediators they need to be. Shamans don't just love ecstasy for nothing. With the work they do, they are ecstatic to be alive. When you experience this type of a spiritual awakening, you are not just a different person. You become a different universe. You become a different world altogether that supports life everywhere there is. So what type of awakenings have you experienced? Now that I've gone through some different ways in which you can awaken, it's time to put a label on what you are experiencing, and it will help you figure out your next steps. If your mind is awakening, you need to exercise it as often as you can. If you are awakening as a new person altogether, you need to look for a support system, one that makes this change easier for you to handle. And one of those support systems can be following Awake, Align, Activate, social media, listening to our podcasts. I've got new podcasts going up all the time and some guided meditations. If your consciousness is awakening, you need to ground yourself as often as you can. Trust me, it's not going to be an easy ride. Regardless of the type of a spiritual awakening you are experiencing, the fact you are awakening is beyond amazing. I know it's not easy, but it's not meant to be either. You can get through this experience. Things will get better. Patience needs to be your best friends right now because nothing else will work. Remember to stay open and remind yourself that everything is unfolding for your greatest good. I wish you all the best, and I hope you get to experience each one of the incredible awakenings and all the beautiful growth and awareness each one will bring to your life.